It is my unhappy duty to advise the House that we will be hearing tributes to a former colleague. I would call, first of all, on the honourable member for Calgary Southwest.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I do rise today to pay a very special tribute to a longtime friend, a colleague of this House who passed away last evening, Peter C. Bawden. Peter was born and raised in Toronto and moved to Alberta in the very early 1950s, where he pioneered the oil well drilling business. Bawden Drilling was formed about 1952, and as the company grew and expanded and became more specialized, their drilling rigs could be found operating in Alberta, in British Columbia, in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Sable Island, the far northern Arctic, Winter Harbor on Melville Island, in the U.S., California, Central America, South America, Australia, Indonesia, Iran, the North Sea, all operating with onshore and offshore facilities. And safety. Safety was always one of Peter's goals. To make sure the men who operated the equipment were well informed, well protected, and well trained. He started in the very beginning, always having a drilling safety supervisor who worked the rigs, ensuring that people's lives always came first. He loved sports, he was involved in the aviation industry, and Peter was everywhere. He served on many boards, various charities, and at the University of Calgary. He did give so much of his life to his community, Calgary, to the province of Alberta, and indeed to all of Canada. Mr. Speaker, Peter Bawden served in this House as the Conservative Member of Parliament from 1972 to 1979, working in so many ways, always for a better Canada. And it was just over a year ago when Peter received the Order of Canada, recognizing his givings, his talents, his accomplishments, and his contributions. So all of us here today regret the loss of a dear colleague and extend our very deepest sympathy to his wife, Margaret, and his children, Jennifer, David, John, Valerie, Kate, and Louise. I thank you, and God bless Peter.
Honourable Deputy to Saint-Denis.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Denis. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very saddened to hear the untimely passing of Peter Colwell Bawden. Internationally known in the petroleum industry, a very highly successful businessman. Those of us who served with him saw how well he represented his constituent. I was surprised when he decided to retire in 1979, he having been elected in 1972 and successfully re-elected in 74. I had the privilege to know him very well. And I repeat again, we were all very surprised when he decided not to run in 1979. And may I say we were all disappointed when he announced his decision that he would rather concentrate all his activity to his highly well-known business enterprise where he was so successful. What we remember of him, Mr. Speaker, is that he always conducted himself as a perfect gentleman, a very highly sensitive person. And these are times today to reflect on these great qualities that Peter Colwell Bawden represented so well. Our leader has asked me and our party extend our very sincere sympathies to his wife that some of us knew very well and to his children. Merci.
The honourable member for Yorkton Melville.
Mr. Speaker, it's a real shock to hear the passing of Peter Bawden. I knew Peter very, very well. Peter was one of those members of Parliament who was well liked on all sides of the House, who was well known on all sides of the House. And one of the things that struck me about Peter was that after he left this place, he still kept in touch with a number of us who were his friends during the days that he was a member of Parliament representing the city of Calgary. Peter brought to the House of Commons, too, some expert knowledge in the field of energy, in the field of business, and a real concern for his community of Calgary, a concern about sports, a concern about education. And I think he was recognized by his country, as my friend from Calgary has just said when he received the Order of Canada just a short while ago. Mr. Speaker, he'll be missed by all of us. On behalf of my party and myself, I want to extend our sincere condolences to his wife, to his family, and to his many, many friends, not just in the city of Calgary, but indeed right across this country.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I just want to add on behalf of the government a couple words about Peter Bawden, who, as a member for Yorkton Melville, just commented. Even though he left this house in 1979 to devote his full time to his business, he did keep in touch. And I can say personally, as a good close friend of Peter and Margaret's, that of all the friends and associates he had around the world, and he had them around the world because of his business interests, and across the country, none he valued more than his associations he made here in this house. And it was for that reason he kept in such close touch. And it's tragic that that he would die at this very early age. My wife and I had the pleasure of spending a couple days with Peter and Margaret just after the New Year. And even then, in his late stages of his illness, he had that tremendous interest in what was going on and constantly probing and asking and suggesting. And it was part of his character to be terrifically interested in what was happening to this country, what was happening in the political scene, to be vitally concerned about it and doing what he could right up to the very end to try and make things better. We'll all miss him.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a word or two for those of us who are involved in the energy portfolio. Peter Bawden not only was a pioneer in that industry, but remained an advisor to me almost to the end. Peter had a very great sense of life. I remember not only being elected in 1972 with Peter, but in 1973 the government convened the Western Economic Opportunities Conference in Calgary, and Peter had just been newly elected, and I remember our attendance at that conference, and Peter saw us on one of the major access roads into Calgary, and he stopped his vehicle and backed up the wrong way up the traffic and invited us to the conference, and that was Peter in a very direct and human way. While we were partisans here, he was a friend to all of us outside of this house. And just the last point, Mr. Speaker, Peter exemplified in the oil industry possibly the very pioneering spirit that has marked that industry. Came from a background that was not in oil. The daring do of the industry and the men and women who were its pioneers, Peter exemplified that. And when I became Minister of Energy, he only had words of support and advice, and it is that advice that all of us will miss.